Every season begins with hope. Another crop, another chance, another year. Every season begins with the same goal: grow healthier crops, build healthier soils, leave the land better than we found it. Yet every season seems to demand a little more. More fertilizer, more crop protection, more technology, and even more investment. Yet many growers still find themselves asking the same question: why aren't nutrients working the way they used to? Why do healthy-looking fields still struggle? Why does every season seem to require just a little more? Maybe the answer isn't found in what we're adding. Maybe it's found in something we've stopped seeing. Because beneath every field is a living system, one built on relationships that have shaped life on Earth for millions of years. So we asked 5 of agriculture's leading voices one simple question: why does healthy soil require less to produce more?
I've been farming a lot of these soils for almost 100 years. But then on top of that, regulation from the Regional Water Quality Control Board really forced us to reevaluate how we're using our nitrogen. And so getting the most efficient nitrogen usage out of what we are putting down. And so they are moving forward with regulation, whether we're ready or not. So
one of California's largest vegetable producers, Betteravia Farms, isn't alone. What they discovered wasn't simply a fertilizer problem, it was a biological one. Across agriculture, growers are facing the same question: why does every season demand just a little bit more?
The disease and disease pressures, things we're seeing here on the farm, problems with fusarium. Fusarium is really tough to knock down. Really looking at it, okay, we got to do things differently, and where can we start? And that's when we really started looking at the biological things that we could input into the farm to help alleviate some of the stressors we were having. So
for decades, the answer was simple: add more, but eventually more stopped solving the problem. Then perhaps the problem wasn't a lack of nutrients. Perhaps it was the system itself.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. See, that was why years ago, like the fertilizers that were sold, like NPK numbers like 3-12-12 is what my grandfather got. Then my dad got a 6-24-24. Now they sell a 9-23-30. So the solubility went up, and they could then sell it based on solubility, but never performance. And there were salts and ammonias, and the idea was to saturate the ground. But then they kept saying, well, we got to put on what the crop takes off. I said, yeah, but it takes off 20 plus minerals. Why are we just doing 3? And then the other thing, we totally ignored this nutrient use efficiency. Are those nutrients really getting into the plant? There was a biological link and a soil structure link that got missed. And that's why I wanted the farmers to focus on the biology. Because on dairy farms, that's really what made them click. You know, the forages they grew and having the manure from cows and the mineral balance we put out there to get quality forages was really about nutrient exchange and mineral uptake. Well, one thing, it was very easy for me to grasp soils because dairy cows are a very similar system to soils. They're a biological system. We call it feed to cows. We call it residues and cover crops to the soil. So they're both biological systems. And so having studied dairy cows, it was really easy to say that the biology was in the cow's rumen. You know, we had to feed the rumen, and we started back in the old days, we were just feeding hay and cob corn and a little soybean meal. Well, now all of a sudden there's 6 or 7 commodities, and we're adding a lot more minerals, and we're adding biology to it, and we're making sure the quality is highly digestible. And all the things we've done to the cow is exactly the same things we need to do to soil. And see, the dairy people really kind of understood that about, because it was a living live system that the dairy cow was. And so that was what brought about some of those principles. And, you know, over the years, I think we mentioned, see, the first thing came along about back in the 70s was sustainable ag. Well, that really didn't mean anything. It just meant they didn't want to buy any fertilizer, but it didn't survive because it never fixed the soil. Now, regenerative is really about, they want to regenerate. I said, the only thing I like about that word is they were recognizing it's broken. And why would you have to fix it? if everything was going so great. But you're going to have to use biological principles to do that. And regenerative, to me, organic is clean air, clean water, clean food. Regenerative is really a lot of talk about no-till, and cover crops is good and compost is good, and having livestock, as well as I do, everybody's not going to have livestock. Drive across the Midwest and tell me how many farms are going to put fences back in again. Not very many of them. So we can still do this. We got soil livestock. So it's taking care of that soil life and understanding it, how it's fed, and you got to have air and water. It's got to be fed, and what you got to do to get the biology to take over your farm. And that was always our objective too, was to get them to reduce the amount of fertilizer they're putting on by doing a better job of management of their soil. See, I always said that out here, what you're talking about is predict your success. So if I say, does that product really fit me? If I put that on, what am I expecting from that? So you got to find your limiting factors, your constraints, and then you got to predict your success. And that's why I said the word regenerative is kind of nice. That means they recognize it's broken, but now what are you going to fix? Where do you start with fixing? Usually it's biology and soil structure and some minerals out here, but you're absolutely right. So that's part of the structures we have, the troubles we have. We got all these fertilizer companies scattered around. They make money selling fertilizer and chemicals. Fertilizer companies, I tried to talk to them. They said, I don't want to tell the farmer he can cut his chemicals in half or his fertilizers in half. He said, how am I going to make a living? That is a problem.
For generations, agriculture learned to feed the crops, but beneath every field, another system was doing the real work. Billions of living organisms cycling nutrients, building soil, and supporting every root below the surface. When that system can no longer function as nature intended, no amount of fertilizer can fully replace what biology once provided.
Very much so. So in the 90s, we started farming a little bit of organic produce, but they farmed organic like it was a conventional field. It was NPK or mostly nitrogen focused. And so really more recently, we've been trying to dial back the nitrogen and then utilize those other nutrients as well as the microbials to produce the most nutritious crop. I'd say within the last about 5 years, really, we've been kind of playing around with a lot of biologicals. In strawberries, we've always done the mycorrhizae and a lot of trichoderma species, but more recently, we've been branching out into more Pseudomonas and a couple of the other ones like you guys' Palestris.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've been playing with as we start integrating different microbes, different products, the seaweeds and things like that into the conventionals. We've been playing with the timing, how close to the fertilizer application we want to go into. Are we seeing abiotic stresses out in the farm? So really just kind of trying to get a hold on it, understanding that certain biologicals have their space, they have their niche per se, and so that's kind of where we're focusing in right now currently. And it has been really interesting and eye-opening to see how these products work in conventional systems as well as in organic systems. That was definitely one of the things that we're afraid of starting. Was just worried about the biology being fried by some of the synthetics we were putting in. So it's been a learning curve, and we've had to hold the rest of our team's hand and just walk them through it, making sure, letting them know, okay, we're fine. We're very used to just putting NPK out there. So it's just, all right, let's work on reducing the NPK a little bit. Let's put out some microbes. Let's test it, making sure that the nitrogen that you need, the nutrients that you need are there when you need them. And yeah, kind of slowly start proving it to them.
How far can we pull back without affecting yield?
Yes.
I'd say definitely dialing in the application timing has been key. We know when we put the product up front in the strawberries, it definitely established better. It was a little bit bigger than our control block. I mean, it definitely is key. And then how frequently those follow-up applications need to be to keep that biology there.
Once Betteravia understood what biology was actually doing, the question changed. It was no longer, what more should we add? It became, how do we help the biology do more?
According to the problem or the situation at hand, I'd say like we do when we do our caneberries, when we mow them down, there's certain microbes that we can put out there and help break up that organic matter a little faster, bring that all back into the soil again.
Oh, that's exactly it. You got to be ready. You got to allow those crops to be ready for any situation that arises, whether it be frost, whether it be 90 degrees or 100 degrees, 3 inches of rain all at one time. And people still need to eat, so you still got to be able to produce that crop and get it out of there. That's exactly it. Is we're leaning back away from the synthetic applications of nutrients and trying to allow what's already out there to be taken up by the plant. Leaning less off of nitrogen, maybe apply phosphorus or potassium as a synthetic and get that better uptake of the nitrogen that's already out there that's being fixed by those microbes.
Yeah. It took a long time to get there, though. I'd say at the beginning it was like, okay, we're adding in these microbes. Sometimes we did it silently, and then okay. Then we go tell the rest of the team, like, all right, this is what we did. Your plant looks great here. Would you agree? Look at the roots. Everything looks good. Everything checked out. We used our capabilities here, our soil testing, tissue testing, and walked it that way because it was very tough to come in with the concept like, hey, we're going to put in these microbes. You're going to reduce your nitrogen 20%. That conversation would have gone a different direction, but slowly backing off 5%, 10%. Then also just using the data that we have to figure out how much nitrogen we need to be applying and at what time has been nice and helpful to get us where we're at.
And the reassurance that everything's going to be okay has been the biggest one. Is here's the data that shows we're okay. Don't freak out.
Real change rarely happens all at once. It happens one field, one season, one observation at a time.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, you guys are going to your marginal ground and really trying to focus on that to increase production. Like that's where the money's made, right? Marginal ground, if you can get that to produce, that's good for farms.
Yeah, anybody can make good ground produce. It's where's the spot where it's like, it's okay, but it's not great, but you can still get a crop out of it. Okay, that's where we want to focus. Utilizing some of the microbials and the conventional where nitrogen has been consistently over applied, it's been a reassurance that you can back off on that nitrogen and not have that much of a problem. But on the other side, in the organics, it's helped with more of the nutrient cycling. And so being able to unlock some of those things are in an organic form and mineralize them into an inorganic form that the plant can uptake, that has really helped our organic production. So 2 different reasons why the microbes have helped, but they've helped both sides of the production curves.
Better farming isn't about replacing one product for another. It's about understanding why living systems work and learning to work with it.
I think that's exactly what we'd be trying to do, is dial in the when, the where, the how much, and then explain back the why to everybody else.
Yeah. Another thing, we just talked about the return on investment. I think one of the hidden gains that we see here is less sprays, less applications, ideally. So I think this coming year is also something that we want to look into, is just that crop health, the soil health and the crop health, how these biologicals and these inputs are helping us just get a more robust crop.
We're trying to see how many passes we can get away with doing tillage practices. Like he was saying, if you don't have to spray an extra time, that's one less tractor pass through the field. That's less carbon being burned, as well as less compaction on that soil. Putting that heavy tractor in there compacts the soil, which defeats the whole purpose of your regenerative farming.
Every season still begins with hope. Another crop, another chance, another year. But the future of agriculture won't be built by asking, what more can we add? It will be built by understanding the living systems that have always been there, just beneath the surface.